Rodriguez, and I am your superintendent. Good evening. And I want to welcome you all this evening to one of many conversations around the redesigning, the reimagining, and the restructuring of our district in service of increasing the opportunities and what it is that we want to do for our students so that they can be successful. This is going to be one of many conversations, and so I want to acknowledge who's in the room. Because I think the last time I counted, it was Friday, we were around 200 people, and it looks like more than that today. So I'm gonna say kudos to you for being here on a hot, evening. There's a lot going on in the district. Many of you are educators. We have graduation happening at this very moment. And so thank you for engaging in the conversation with us. I want to also acknowledge our board members that are in the room with us. Juan Hernandez, Kim Oliver, Julio Flores, thank you for being here and for your support. Also, want to just take a pulse because we have here, besides our teachers, our parents, our SGC members, PTOs, we have our community-based organizations. We have our community health organizations. We have higher ed here with us today. We have our corporate partners. We have our small business owners. So just to give you an idea of who has raised their hand and who has said, I am here to make sure that all of the voices are counted, heard, and then involved in the process moving forward. So I want to just acknowledge all of you for being here tonight. Also want to introduce Leadership Greater Hartford. Leadership Greater Hartford is here. Ted, Doe, Karen, and many others from the team. And they're here to assist with this conversation and to facilitate the small group discussion, to take notes and to ensure that we capture all of the information that we're going to use as we later begin to redesign our district. Just to frame today's conversation, and again, I said that this is going to be one of many conversations. Today, we want to make sure, again, that the voices are heard, and I just want to get something right out on the table. You know, as I was coming here, I was getting some calls, and people said, oh, you know, there's rumors that, you know, you're getting everybody together, and you're going to just share with them what the plan is. I'm like, well, what plan? What plan are you talking about? Well, they said that you know and you have a big plan. And so I said, no. We want to engage people in the conversation to inform whatever it is that we are going to collectively determine what the district, should be reimagined into. So I just wanted to get that out of the way first before we really dig into the work. The goals for today is to review, to take a step back and review where we are as a district, to create a shared vision of what we want our schools to be, and then to explore the priorities as we engage in the redesign, because we have to think about what we have to do first. What is it that we want to prioritize in this process? So again, your perspective, your vision is going to inform our collective vision. I want to take a step back to think about who is it, Who is it that we serve? Our collective purpose is our students. And so I'm going to remind us that when we engage today, and even moving forward, in all of the conversations that we engage in, just remember that what we share, that one element that we all share is our students. So we're going to keep coming back and grounding ourselves in that work. Want to make sure that we stay focused on the needs that all of our students have. We are an urban context, We are an urban center, and we have many challenges, great opportunities that we have many strengths, but we also have a lot of challenges. And, you know, we have a district that services a very diverse population, including our English learners, our special education students, as well as many of our students who live in poverty. And so this slide just gives you an overview of who it is that we serve and who we are committed to for our 21,000 students. Ultimately, what we want to do is to say, how is it that we can ensure that we create learning spaces for all of our students so that when they're leaving us, right, when they transition into the world of work and to college, that they are critical thinkers, that they know how to collaborate, that they know how to engage in conversations, that they problem solve, and ultimately, that they come back to us to give back to their community. So our promise to our students, where we want to be, is to make sure that our students are able to transform their world. And in order for that to happen, what we are saying we're going to do, our mission, right, how we're going to get there, is to inspire and prepare all of our students to create their own success in school when they're with us, and then beyond school. And when you think about it, it's really bold, right? What we're saying, we are going to say that students are going to be at the center of their learning. They are going to be at the center of letting us know what works for them, what type of learning works, what type of teaching works best for their learning. I'm going to frame for you before we engage and we go into the work is our goals, our strategic goals. We have what I call 4 overarching goals, and they are part of the next level of work of our strategic operating plan, which many of you, right, had your voices at the table when the strategic operating plan was created. And I don't know about you all, but I certainly want excellent schools. I want all of our schools to be excellent schools. Magnet, non-magnet, north, south, wherever. All of our schools must be excellent schools. And in order to do that, there are 4 goals for the next 3 years that we're going to really narrow in on as a district. One is operational effectiveness. And that's a fancy way of saying that we want to ensure that all of our resources, when I talk about resources, right, our money, our human capital, meaning our staff, our programs, and our facilities, that all of our resources are aligned in a way that are going to support the students that we serve, the diverse students that we serve, within the context of the world in which they're going to go in and be productive adults. Another goal for us still remains teaching and learning. At the end of the day, that's the business in which we're in. We're in the business of teaching and learning and making sure that that interaction that happens between what the teacher is teaching, how the teacher is teaching it, and how the student is receiving, that's called the core, the instructional core. We want to make sure that that happens at a high level of excellence and with a lot of rigor. We're not going to let go of that goal. That goal has to remain for us. A third goal for us is around family and community engagement. This that we're doing today is a perfect example of how we want to envision family and community engagement, because it's about co-creation, and this is what we're doing today, right? We're co-creating, coming together, putting our thoughts and our minds together around what do we want moving forward? What do we want to see in all of our schools? And we want to make sure that we do that in a way that recognizes what people bring and the strengths that people bring. We want to make sure that we validate our parents and our community members and community organizations and our partners as they contribute to student learning. And the 4th goal is around systemic accountability. And if you haven't heard me by now, I have no problem saying that I want you all to hold me and my team accountable for the work. And in order to be held accountable, I need to make sure that we have structures, that we have processes, practices throughout the district at all levels of the organization, not just in schools, not just in the classroom, but in our central office as well, throughout the entire district, so that we're all contributing to the learning process and the outcomes of our students. And so I thought, you know what, I have to name that, right? Accountability, I have to name that. And it's not just about, please don't think of accountability as test scores. Way beyond that. In addition to that, it's about, am I doing what I said I was going to do? Am I going to be the leader that I said I was going to be? Am I going to be the teacher that I said I was going to be? And then as a district, are we supporting the leaders and the teachers, right, in order to have excellent outcomes for our students? So we have three, under these 4 goals, you'll see 3 what we're calling foundational commitments, 2 of which are carried over from the initial strategic operating plan, making sure that students remain at the center of their learning, also developing our leaders to lead for learning. And leaders, I mean leaders in the broadest sense of the word, from our principals to our parents as leaders, to our community-based organizations as well as leaders. And then the 3rd commitment is around making sure that we organize and we operate for learning. And what that means is that making sure that we have conditions in place, right, that we're able to make sure that we have our calendars are aligned. I know it sounds very simple, but it matters because that means that we have an organized system. The district is a system. And when you think of a system, there are many parts to the system. For example, our 47 schools, right? They make up this one district. And we want to make sure that we're all organized in a way that we're able to understand what it is that we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and that we can speak and show our data, right? Our facts. Show how it is that we're making our progress. So those are the foundational commitments. If you see the image, right, that's what's below the house. That's the foundation of the house, meaning our district, Hartford Public Schools. So I just wanted to kind of take us back around what it is our goals are so that it can inform our thinking when we engage in the small group conversations. And I also wanted to take a moment to check in on our progress to date. We have our equity indicators, and our equity indicators really are, again, our progress to date. I don't know if you can see it very well on the slide or in your notes, if it's visible in your notes, but I can speak to some of the progress that we have made. One of our indicators for student success, what we're saying we're going to do to improve our outcomes for our students, is college, 100% college acceptance. And there was a 5.9, a 6% increase in terms of college acceptances for our students. So that deserves a round of applause. Some other here that some of the progress to date that is listed. We have a 6% increase in our access to college and career readiness opportunities. Those are our internships, for example. We also had a 44% reduction in the amount of suspensions, 4% increase in the number of students that are passing our Algebra 1 with a C or better. And even our chronic absenteeism rate has decreased. And so, again, much progress, some progress, but much room for improvement as well. So we have to keep that in the back of our mind when we think about what is it that we need to reimagine our district into in order to align with what we said we wanted to measure our progress in. So that brings us to where we are today in terms of the challenge. Certainly have progress, but it's not enough. We have to accelerate our progress. And we have many challenges in front of us, and you've heard me talk about these challenges before. There is significant variance across our schools in the way that they're performing. So variance is that some of our schools are performing at high levels and others are not. If we put our schools in a continuum, they're all over the continuum. And really what we want to do, right, is make sure that all of our schools are performing at high levels. That's a challenge for us. We also have the financial uncertainty. We're all aware of the financial uncertainty for our city and for our state. This would be, the ninth year. We're going to go into the ninth year of flat funding for our school district. That's a challenge for us. We have increasing costs in terms of our operations, right? How much it costs to run our schools. Those increase every year. Also have the implications, unintended consequences of chef, but there's still implications in the way that we want to redesign our district. Also the facilities usage, our buildings. Schools are operating under enrollment, right? And so some of our schools are not at the capacity that they should be from a facility perspective to have our students attending there as well. And a few weeks ago we engaged in a conversation at Martin Luther King, and I have Costas Diamantis here from the State Department of the Office of Department of Administrative Services, and Costa was speaking to us around from a facility perspective and the fact that some of our schools should not be the way, right, that they are. Students should not be walking into some of these facilities. That's the reality for us. And we have to have that conversation as well. And so all of these challenges put together, enrollment, fiscal challenges, facilities, and the fact that we want to make sure that our students leave ready to the world of work, college that's waiting for them. So we have to look at our programs to make sure that we are really getting our students ready to be successful. So what my team and I really want to do is engage you in the conversation. And at the end of these conversations, this is one of many, I'm going to remind us that our schools may look different. Some schools will consolidate. So schools may look different. Schools will consolidate. Some buildings might have to be repurposed. Whatever it is, the outcome at the end of this engagement process is going to look different, but we wanted to make sure that through that process, we lift and leverage voice. So the question is, then what is a great school? And the reason why we have to redesign, reimagine, is because we want to make sure that we're able to say every student has a great school. And when you have the under-enrollment, when we have the facilities and the financial issues, we know that we cannot serve our students well. Some students will get and some will not, and that is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. And so today we're going to start there, examining what is it that makes a great school. And when we look at the research, there's lots of research out there that tells us what makes a great school. But in addition to the resources, you all bring a very different perspective. We have our parents here, we have some students, community-based organizations, higher ed, you all bring a different perspective into this work. Because we know that even as a superintendent, I can't say the work is all at the district, right? We know that this is a collective effort, and so we wanted to make sure that we couple what the research says with your expertise as parents and as community members, if you will. And so the research, and I'll go through this list very quickly. I believe that you have in your handouts what the research speaks to in terms of what makes a great school. So what makes a great school? We have to make sure that there's coherence and alignment. And that's a fancy way of saying, make sure that everyone understands and works toward the same priorities. We have to have effective leaders in our schools. Standards-based practice. Making sure that what we teach, how we teach it, and how we assess that meets the standards that not only the state puts forth for us, but that is at a rigorous level. And making sure that we have high expectations. There is no lowering down expectation for our students. Because if you lower an expectation, what's going to happen when you lower an expectation? They're going to meet that low expectation, right? Keeping the bar high at all times. making sure that we have effective teachers, culturally responsive teaching, particularly in an urban setting like ours, right? Making sure that staff, teachers, administrators appreciate the many cultures that the school has and that they teach in a way that's appropriate around those those cultural elements. We have to make sure that students have access to technology. And you know, some of our schools struggle around technology because they don't have it. Making sure that our students are engaged, that they're actively involved in their learning, that they're connected to their learning. Research also tells us that we have to make sure that the adults in the building are collaborating with one another, that there are caring adults in the building. We know that research says that if a student has just one adult, at least one adult that they feel that they can connect to, that makes a significant difference in their experience. Family engagement. We know you, parents, are experts, right? You know your students best. You know your children best. So making sure that you inform us and that we allow you to help inform our thinking. Data-informed decisions. That's making sure that we look at what we're doing and the facts, and that we change our practice based on that. Welcoming environment. We just want our families and our students to feel safe, secure, welcomed, wanted in our buildings. Needs-based resources. That means that the decisions that are made about the funding, the staffing, and the supports. We have some of our schools are community schools, making sure that we keep those services in our schools. And then, of course, there's school size. The school size has to be designed so that the resources can be distributed in a way that's going to meet the needs of our students. And so when we look at where we are right now in Hartford, our resources are stretched too thin. So that's a challenge for us. So we know what the research is telling us about what it is that makes a school great. So I'm actually now going to turn it to Ted. Ted, you're going to facilitate our first conversation, and then you're going to kick it back to me?
Exactly.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Torres Rodriguez. My name is Ted Carroll, President of Leadership of Greater Hartford, and together with Doe Henschel and members of our staff, and big thanks in particular to about 24 individuals from our organization today who will serve as facilitators. I'm going to invite those facilitators to stand at this time so that you could recognize who at your table will actually lead your conversation. Please join me in thanking these wonderful people. I ask you to stand in part, too, because when I'm done, I'm going to invite those who are sitting on the periphery to come into the center of the room so that you can populate those tables and join the conversation, because we have a couple of exercises we want to do this evening, and it will be important for you to know and participate in those activities. The first thing we're going to do, however, Dr. Torres Rodriguez has just articulated some 15 qualities of a good school based on all the research that has been done. The first task before us today is for you to evaluate how well we're doing in this district. In other words, there will be statements that you will see, and you will be asked to agree with those statements or disagree. So, for example, one such statement might read, the first one will be, everyone understands and works toward the same priorities. Well, you're going to be asked, generally speaking, do you agree with that statement, or would you disagree? And then, if you disagree, if tables seem to disagree with that statement, we'll be invited to spend a little bit of time talking about, well, what could we do about it? What strategies might we employ? What has worked elsewhere? So the facilitator will capture a lot of that information, will record the statements with which you agree, those that you disagree with. And we're going to do all of that in the next 25 minutes or so, and then we'll come back together and get a few comments from a few people before we come into the next exercise. Okay? So this would be the time, if you're on the periphery and care to be part of our conversation, come on into the center. We have plenty of chairs still available. Thank you. Your 1 minute warning. 1 minute, we'll wrap up.
At Hartford Public Schools, we care about one thing above all, the future of our kids. That's why we're dedicated to providing all students with the knowledge and skills needed in the new global culture. Hartford Public Schools is thriving. More student success stories, more world-class facilities, more university and corporate partnerships, more amazing talent coming and staying in Hartford. This is how education is supposed to work. Welcome to Hartford Public Schools, where the future is present.
Let me bring us back together. Here's what we're going to do. Friends, so that you know for sure that you have been heard. Our facilitators have captured your comments, your feedback, your scoring. We at Leadership Greater Hartford are going to summarize all of this, share it with the superintendent and her team, so that she can understand where it is she and the rest of the school board need to focus their attention, their energies, and their resources. I will say, having visited all of the tables at least briefly, having looked at the lists, you're going to have a lot of work cut out for you, Doctor. This is no surprise. We knew there was a lot of work to do. At the same time, you have helped us focus today on those parts of the system that need most attention. So this will be very, very helpful as we begin to think about the ways in which we reframe and refocus our efforts. I would want to invite, we have time for 3 people in the room. If you have something to share about this process, particularly something that you found new, interesting, and hopeful, this would be an opportunity to share that at this time. We have a microphone over to the side. We have another one off to the center. Deirdre's holding another. We have a third off to the side. Is there anyone who would care to share a reflection about what they learned, what they discovered, what they're feeling hopeful about as a consequence of their time together? Please. We have a microphone right over here, sir.
Peace.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I want to say peace to everyone, but I want to share about
No, actually, the microphone would be very helpful, sir.
what I want to share about my experience today is I want to thank Dr. Torres for all the changes that she's making, and as a member of this community, I feel good that we have someone that is really engaging the community. We've never had a superintendent that has really been willing to work with us, so I want to thank her for that. And I feel that it gives a lot of our families hope and faith that we're going to make our district, like I've been saying for 30 years, and I don't want to offend anyone, but I want to make our schools in Hartford good enough where white folks are kicking our doors down to send their kids here. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Another voice, yes, to the side, please.
Good evening, everyone. I am very happy to be here. I love the energy in the room. But as a parent, I am sorely disappointed in this process because you want us to analyze the entire district. We have such a great cross-section of the district here. If each individual give their individual perspective, we will certainly have a true vision of the district. We are at one table. We have 1, 2, 3, at least 4 schools represented, and it was extremely difficult to give clear answers. I just want that to be said. As always, I am very optimistic and hopeful where this process is concerned. We have a new superintendent, we have new guards on watch, and I am going to say we will get this done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the feedback. Each person will actually have an opportunity to share some of their thoughts about this process in an evaluation we'll ask you to complete at the end. So your feedback will be helpful to us as we try to improve upon the community conversations that will go forward. So thank you. Is there a third voice, perhaps?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm just speaking on behalf of. I'm speaking because I'm a grandparent, and I have a grandchild that's in the school district as well, in the Hartford School District. We're all here trying to get the same thing done, trying to accomplish the right things for each one of our kids and our grandkids. But right now, to stand here and say that I'm going to agree with everything that they're trying to do, no, I'm not. I'm not. Because the simple fact is that why should it take so long for them to actually sit down and come together to make this right. They got a lot of failing schools in this district. Y'all trying to combine schools together? Come on now, y'all can't combine schools together if the kids is not all on the same learning standards. We gotta do something, we gotta do better.
You know, I appreciate that comment in particular because it sets the table for what we want to do next. You've heard the superintendent say frequently and clearly that there will need to be some kinds of consolidations. But how will we go about doing that? What considerations are going to be vitally important? So I'm going to invite Dr. Torres Rodriguez to share with her. Oh, okay, final voice before we move on. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm very short. I am with the Hartford Parent University and also Hartford Public High School, Law and Government, SGC. I just want to say that this is a great opportunity for all of us to be here, but I think you're all forgetting one important thing, and that's capturing the recommendations that we would have had from all the discussions that we had here. That's the only thing that I have. Thank you.
Okay, and I may not have been clear, but we are indeed going to capture those recommendations. We're going to summarize it. It will be available to each and all of you if you would like to take a look at that. It is absolutely going to be funneled into a planning process to inform decisions that get made by the superintendent and the school board going forward. One final quick one.
The opportunity. Sam Saylor Jr. When we speak about family engagement, when we look around, is it a true representation of the community that we're looking to serve and support? So if we're really talking about family engagement, being culturally responsive, and meeting the families where they are, and not having them come to us, I think this needs to be offered at least a couple more times so families can make accommodations, arrangements to be a part of this conversation, discussion.
Thank you. Dr. Torres Rodriguez, please take us to the next phase. There'll be other opportunities to chat later. If you could hold your comments so we could do the next part of this. Thank you.
So I wanted actually to take a step back to what we have heard, because I want us to go a little deeper and talk about the district and what it is that we need to prioritize, like Ted told us. We're not starting from scratch. And as you know, last year there was the Equity 2020 process that, you know, information was gathered and shared, and there were discussions, and what I really wanted to make sure was that I compiled, I had our colleagues at the University of Connecticut actually compile that information so that I can then say, okay, this is where we're now going to transition, but we also have to think about the information that was given to us. We've also had a recent conversation at Martin Luther King in North Hartford with Milner and other of the North Hartford communities. Some of you might know that the Weaver High School steering committee is talking about key considerations in high school design. We have several schools now that are still in incubator, in temporary spaces that they've been actively searching for a home and need a home. Those are things that we need to prioritize. And so I wanted to kind of capture and share with you what it is that we have heard. And these trends, these themes were informed by parents, families, our communities, our teachers, administrators. And when we engaged in the conversation, you told us that transportation matters, to make sure that when we're thinking about any redesign, that we have to make sure that the transportation is available. Staffing. They said, district, think about the staffing implications. We certainly do not want to lose our teachers. Right? We want to make sure we value our teachers, we're committed, and we have to make sure that we think about that in any redesign. Grade level configurations. You know, they said to us, we have a K-5 model, we have a K-8, we have a K-12, we have a 6-12. It's kind of like, make up your mind. Like, what is it? Who are we? Is something that we heard from the conversations. Student pathways. The notion that, do families really understand the pathway for their child? From elementary to middle and high school, and how does that align with the real world, right? The college pathways, career pathways. community resources in the schools. The thought was that if we are going to redesign, and if we may have to consolidate some of the schools, make sure that we value the resources that the families need to make sure that those resources remain. Because we want to make sure that we not only service the child from an academic perspective, but from a social and emotional perspective as well, from a mental health perspective, from a community health perspective as well. The composition of the student body matters, making sure that, do we want to have elementary school age students with high school students? No, right? So making sure that we think about all of those things. Also, the condition of the facility. Parents and community members expressed to us concern about the conditions of some of our schools. The use of the space and the enrollment. And the notion and the reality, really, that, there are schools that are under capacity in terms of their enrollment. We were told to also think about the theme and the programs in the school. Make sure that we have themes that our students are really going to be engaged in, and explore other things that we might need. They told us to look at school and academic performance, making sure, again, that we have schools at all levels and throughout the entire district that are performing at high levels. That we operate the school, the operating cost of the school, and making sure that we cannot continue to stretch the resources so thin, because then we're not going to be able to have programming for our students, good solid programming for our students. We think about the middle school need, right? We're talking about what is it that our middle school children need, because we know that 7th and 8th grade is such a crucial time in the trajectory of our students, right? By the time they get to high school, if they're not already engaged, we're in trouble. We all know that. So making sure that we design programs at the middle grades to really, really capture not only who they are as learners, but who they are as people, as human beings. Cost savings and benefits for each plan under consideration. When Equity 2020 was underway, there were some scenarios that were presented, and the conversations and the questions were, tell us what the savings are. So making sure that moving forward, we keep that as well in the back of our minds. The other one was an interesting one. How school moves will be organized and scheduled. People had a lot of questions about, okay, so this is a scenario, but what is it going to look like in terms of the transition? By the way, the research does tell us that transitions matter. If we're not careful, it can have an impact on academic achievement. So we have to be very, very mindful, not only about what the design of the district is going to be, but how we're going to implement those transitions, making sure that we stay connected to what the students are doing and their achievement. The next one was prioritizing schools in temporary spaces. We know that we have schools that are split in some of our buildings. We want to make sure that they remain as a community, right? We have a school that has 2 sites. So what is it that we need to think about when we think about the larger redesign plan? And lastly, the neighborhood impact. We cannot think about this in isolation. We cannot think about it from the perspective of just the facility. We have to think about the broader impact. We know a school is at the center of its community. So when we think about this master design that we're all going to contribute to, making sure that we think about the impact that it's going to have on the community from a resource perspective, making sure that if a school has to consolidate, make sure that the resources are going to be still in the community somehow. So that's going to require even stronger, more intentional partnerships with our community-based organizations. So I just wanted to kind of step back and present and share with you the information that we got from that process. Ted, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can facilitate the last one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the next task, Dr. Torres Rodriguez has just outlined the 15 considerations that the public has asked her to keep in mind as she goes about this process. But help us Now determine the priority considerations. Walk through each of those and determine for yourself which 5 are of the greatest priority in your own mind. You'll have a chance to talk about that as a group. It'll be facilitated. At the end, you will be given, each of you, 5 stars to put next to the 5 items you think are most important as these decisions get made. So we'll have about 25 minutes to talk about this, and with about 8 minutes left, I'm going to invite you to start your star voting. Okay? Your facilitator can assist you. Thank you.
At Hartford Public Schools, we care about one thing above all, the future of our kids. That's why we're dedicated to providing all students with the knowledge and skills needed in the new global culture. Hartford Public Schools is thriving. More student success stories, more world-class facilities, more university and corporate partnerships, more amazing talent coming and staying in Hartford. This is how education is supposed to work. Welcome to Hartford Public Schools, where the future is present.
I will give again another 3 to 5 people an opportunity to share some of their reflections on this part of the process or on the overall event. So if you do have something that you would like to share that will inspire us to keep going, that will inform us on how we can do this better, that will be appreciated. Speaking of which, at this time, facilitators, if you would not mind sharing the evaluation sheets for each participant to complete. Before you leave, it would be great to collect that feedback as well. I also want to make a point of saying, for those who did not receive a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, we have additional copies available at the table as you leave tonight. Feel free to pick them up. I believe we have them in both English and in Spanish. And let me also confirm for you what I had alluded to earlier, that all of the information we collect, both in the aggregate and in the executive summary forms, will be available to all of you. We will post the information, the reports, as we pull them together within the next 2 weeks. It'll be posted on the Hartford Board of Education website. For any of you who registered in advance and for whom we have your email address, we will send you copies via email. Those who would like hard copies may pick those up at the Welcome Center, at the Family Resource Center, probably from your principal as well. They'll be available in lots of different ways, in lots of different locations. So it is very important for us to circle back with you to tell you what you said collectively about the key questions that we were dealing with today. If I may invite a few voices to share some thoughts. I promise, my friend, first dibs, so please go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming this evening, taking the time off from your homes and your family to come here. My name is Benita Toussaint, and I'm a mother, grandmother, and a great-grandmother. I love this city of Hartford, and this city of Hartford did a lot for me. My children were born here. I have a major in the United States Air Force, and so on and so forth. What I am concerned about most is the way our children are being kicked out of school on suspension. And we have not, this problem have not been abated. I heard our superintendent say that it's down at 44%. It's not acceptable. We have the resources, we have so much, and yet we cannot find solutions. There are ways that we can work with our children to give them the education that is due to them and it's theirs by right. And I hope this assembly would get together and do something so that, you know, the next time we meet again, it's going to be like zero. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benita. Anyone else would like to comment on the, please, right over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Denise Vest. I've been an educator for nearly 50 years. I'm a member of the staff at Blue Hill Civic Association. I just want to say that at my table, had the pleasure of sharing it with 3 students, 2 who are high school students currently, and 1 is a recent graduate. And I think that they had the most insightful comments, and that we should extend this exercise, these exercises, to our current students and get their opinion and take on this.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent suggestion. Are there other suggestions, other reflections, other nuggets that people would like to share at this time? You'll have lots of opportunity to note them on the evaluation form. I invite you to complete that and to hand it into the front table as you leave tonight. But at this point, let us welcome back Dr. Torres Rodriguez.
Okay. So before we conclude the evening, so thank you for your reflections and your thinking tonight. As I mentioned, this is going to be the first of a series, actually, of opportunities for us to go through this process together. I wanted to just, let me go back to our presentation. Just want to highlight the big picture in terms of next steps. There is a board policy regarding school closings and any regulations that provide guidance for the process. The board policy committee has been working on revising the policy to increase the level of engagement. And the policy committee also worked on this over the past school year, but the vote has not happened yet, and so the board is working on that. And Ms. Natalie, I do agree with you. Where are you, Ms. Natalie? With regard to the conversation and the engagement. And so, yes, there are multiple ways for continued engagement in the conversation. Today is one of many opportunities, and my expectation for the timeline, at least one more larger community conversation like this one, but then we have to take it to the school level. We have to make sure that there are school-based discussions. Also, in addition to SGCs and PTOs, I want to make sure that we leverage the teachers, but also the student voice in the conversation. I know that that was, Denise, you referenced that for us, making sure that we really get to what it is that our students are thinking. And then, you know, when it comes to the discussions, although we're going to have them throughout the district and at all of our schools, we want to really focus in on some of the schools that are possibly going to be impacted, right, when we think about the redesign. And so we want to make sure that we really, really honor all voices, but also spend additional time, if you will, really focusing and engaging with the schools. There will be at least 2 public hearings with the Board of Education, and then sharing information in multiple formats at the school level, with the websites, through our community partners. And the plan, whatever it ends up being, just making sure that it's informed by a collective process. I know that we have some board members here. You know, the board hasn't asked me as a superintendent board hasn't said, you know, Dr. Torres Rodriguez, this is your due date for, you know, a redesign. But we know, I know, you know, that we cannot continue to operate the way that we've been operating, right? When we think about our finances, the level of engagement, the way that our students are performing in some of our schools, all of these things put together, we have to act. Right? We have to make sure that not just some of our schools are great, but that all of our schools are great. But, you know, as I said at the beginning of the process, the discussions are going to happen throughout the district, because I want to make sure that when we make difficult decisions, because we will have to make difficult decisions, The district cannot continue to be designed in terms of the number of schools, in terms of the programs that we offer, in the way that it is. And so I just want to be transparent about that. But I also want to say that the collective voice needs to be part of that process. And so, 3 years from now, the district will not look the way that it does now. It just cannot. It cannot, because we owe it to our students. In all of our schools, they must have access to great schools. So that's going to be a tough conversation for us. I am here, I extend my hand. My hand and my staff, my team, extends their hand to all of you so that we can engage in the process on behalf of our students. Always coming back, it's about the students. As difficult as the conversations are going to be, we have to really stay focused on what is best for our students. Quality, access to quality in all of our schools. So I extend again the conversation moving forward and making sure that you know that I value your input. I want to say that I'm proud for all of us coming together and engaging in this first conversation, and I am proud to serve as your superintendent. So thank you for being here tonight.